All right. My project was writing and directing a one-act play, and that's my name. My essential question was what necessary steps should be taken in order to write and direct a one-act play for the METG Festival. And before I get into anything, I wanted to establish what METG is. METG stands for the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild, and it's a nonprofit organization in the state of Massachusetts that organizes events like festivals and award shows and contests for high school and middle school level theater programs around the state. For my outline, I have it divided into 4 sections. I have inspiration, preparation, execution, and evaluation. My inspiration, so before the project started, I chose this project because for the past 4 years, it's been an annual tradition. All the seniors, or one senior every year in drama club, chooses to direct the play, and I thought I would keep that tradition going because I was also the only senior. So if I hadn't done it, there wouldn't have otherwise been a spring production. So I thought that was important for experience for the actors. In the past, there hasn't been the writing aspect, but I wanted to add it not only for experience for my major in college, which is going to be film and television, but also because as a global scholar, the project needs to be globally inspired, and I thought it would be easier to connect it to a global theme or idea if I was able to write that idea into the play myself. And then this is a picture of the script. My mentor, I chose Mrs. Bartley because as the drama club director for many years, she has a lot of experience directing and leading a group of students that are not the easiest to work with at a high school age. And also on the receiving end of that as an actor in high school. And then she has also been the mentor for every other student who has done this project. And then because of the writing aspect, I was able to receive feedback on that too because of her position as the Millis High School English teacher, or one of them. For preparation, first we had all of the METG meetings that we had to attend. The first meeting, they kind of just established the ground rules and went over the important dates and the criteria for all the plays and the festival day. And then also that's the day we got our host schools revealed, so which school we would be competing at and which other schools would be there on the day of festival. And this is a screenshot from the METG website, which shows the lineup of all the schools. Sharon was our host school. And then the second meeting was for students. It was kind of just advice for first-time directors, and there was kind of a Q&A where we were able to ask questions to more seasoned theater members. For the writing, there were a few different parts of that. There was a pre-writing. I had to come up with a concept, which Kevin Brinchka did. He thought of the idea of a bunch of people in an airport, and I kind of rolled with that. And then I had to develop that into a plot, so the story of it rather than just the idea. And then the characters, since it was such a complex plot, so many different characters, and the whole point is that they all come from different places, I had to really make sure each character was distinct. So I did a lot of work with the characters and their stories. And then a beat sheet. This is something that a lot of industry professionals recommend heavily. It's essentially when you divide the story into a bunch of different beats, not quite scenes, but just a small collection of dialogue and actions that make up a beat, just kind of a moment in the play. And then those beats end up, you compile them into one scene. This was incredibly important because of all the different stories. As I mentioned, the characters who are interacting and their stories are crossing with each other. So I had to have the beat sheet for the overall play, and then also for each character's story, and then also their stories as they interacted with each other. So then during the draft, I had to make sure I had all 3 right next to me so I could refer to them at all times. And I did not revise the draft until I finished it, which was very important because that elicited the most raw emotion. And then my first revision, I left it for 24 plus hours just to kind of clear my mind and not kind of be biased to my first draft of it. And I was able to revise it to be the best that it could be. And I got a lot of outside input from English teachers such as Mrs. Bartley and a lot of the members of the drama club. For the casting, I wrote the characters around the actors, in all honesty, which is a benefit of writing a play myself. And then I had them send in video auditions just in case I wasn't sure about my decision on the character that I wrote for the actors. And I had them choose a 1-minute monologue of their choice. Some collaborated with each other and did a video together. And I loved seeing their creativity with all their videos that they submitted. I released the cast list right before winter break and also the script with that, so they'd be able to read it for the first time and start learning their lines during that week and a half, 2 weeks that we had off of school. Since we had such a limited time with rehearsals, we actually started rehearsals late, later than in past years. So I thought it was important to get off book really quickly. Execution, we had 2-hour rehearsals and 2 rehearsals per week on Mondays and Tuesdays. There was one technique that I learned in one of my research reports, which I wanted to implement immediately. It was after blocking a section of the play for one rehearsal, all of the actors had to be off book and know all their lines and blocking for that section by the rehearsal afterwards. And I found that this actually helped move the process along very quickly, and it was very beneficial for the overall organization. And then we also worked on projection a lot in rehearsals because we've had some actors that struggle with that in the past. I used to be one of them, so I know how important it is. And I also wanted to get the props and set very early on, which I was able to do pretty well. For the technical aspects like lighting and sound, I had Shaylin Cronin design all of the lighting sequences and transitions, and Shaylin even recorded a lot of the sound effects himself. And for costumes, Aurea actually stepped up herself and sent me a bunch of sketches, and she was like, if you need inspiration, here are some ideas that I had. And I was like, these are amazing sketches. If you want to be in charge of the costumes, then that would be very helpful, and that also makes it more collaborative. Instead of just me being in charge, I was able to give everyone some more important roles. And then props, I basically got them from my house, but my grandmother also found a computer at the Wellesley dump. It didn't work, but it worked for the play. For sets, since we had a limited budget, I resorted to websites like Shein and Temu and, AliExpress, who are notoriously kind of cheap, but all of the set pieces actually ended up being great quality. The chairs that we got, the desk, and the table, which you can see here. I ended up spending about $650 total from the budget, and I believe that was $300 less than we had total, so it worked out. These are the chairs that I originally wanted to have because, airport vibes. And after doing a lot of research, I realized that even the cheapest option would have been about $1,000 to $2,000. So I ended up going with these, and they worked just as fine. So I put this in there just to show the overcoming obstacles and changing original ideas, and it still worked out. The end of rehearsals, we had Tech Week and our Tech Day at Sharon, and then festival was on a Saturday, and it was an all-day thing. It was not as long as it was originally going to be because one school almost dropped out, and we already had less schools than a lot of other host schools, so that was not as long as it would have been for other host schools. We won 2 technical awards and 2 acting awards, which were given to Aurea and Rio, so yay, proud of them. And then we did our performance at Millis the Friday after festival, and this was a promotional poster that I designed for the play. And then evaluation. So because I'm a global scholar, the senior project has to be globally inspired, and as I mentioned, I wrote it for that purpose. So the play's themes like sexuality, there's some generational trauma, and of course community. I felt like I portrayed those better than I expected to, so I was very pleased with that. And then also experience participating in the global art form that is theater. As I mentioned also, I was the only senior, and if I didn't do this as my senior project, it probably wouldn't have happened, and it was very important that a lot of the actors, on top of myself, had that experience with 2 plays a year instead of just the fall play. So that worked out well too. For some setbacks, there was the fight scene, which I have a link too. I muted the first second or two because there is a swear. So I included this because, as you can see, there are a lot of moving parts in that, and that took up a majority of the rehearsals, which kind of had me worrying because we had to get off book and learn blocking, and then that one scene, just that 30 seconds, there were the main fight, all the rest of the group, the security guards running in, Kevin, who played Araya's boyfriend, soon-to-be fiance, trying to pull her back. So that was very complicated, and I'm actually glad we spent so much time on that. We had 4 snow days, and I ended up in the hospital one day with a very high fever, so we lost a lot of rehearsals too, and I'm very pleased with how the cast handled that, and they were all on top of their lines and everything. They really wanted to make sure the play could be the best that it could be. For Tech Day, that also got affected by a snow day. We were going to have it on a Tuesday, and then we didn't have school, so we couldn't go to Sharon to spike the stage and run our play. And Sharon was also very helpful for rescheduling that and figuring out how to fix that situation. For Vision of a Graduate, critical thinking, as a lot of my slides have presented these issues that I had, and I was able to learn that directing isn't just making the decisions, but also adapting to issues quickly, which I was surprised that I was able to do so well. For collaboration, collaborating with the actors, listening to their voices and opinions because they also had great creative ideas. Communication, also communicating my ideas with the actors to make sure they could execute the play well. And then for character, the leadership skills that this brought me and the artistic abilities that I was able to exercise during this process. And then what's next? I'm gonna let the next year's seniors fight over who gets to direct, but I'm sure anyone who gets that will do a great job. This is my works cited, and any questions?